Ethan pushed the mop across the polished floor of Xylar Vont's towering office, his movements almost automatic. The alien billionaire's headquarters was a marvel of technology and wealth, stretching over multiple levels with walls that shimmered like liquid glass and lights that shifted in color with each passing hour. Humans were rare here. Most beings who walked these halls were alien executives, dressed in uniforms that gleamed like metal. Ethan, in his plain human uniform and gloves, was invisible to them, or at least that was what they thought. He had been a janitor on this space station for only a few months, and yet he had learned more about alien corporate politics than many career analysts. Humans were considered weak, insignificant, and expendable by the majority of alien races, but Ethan knew better. He had spent years studying alien systems, understanding their bureaucracy and analyzing their patterns. No one expected a human to notice the details that others missed, but he did. That day, he had a task beyond the usual cleaning. While clearing debris from the central office floor, he overheard Xylar talking to his legal AI assistant. The words made Ethan's stomach tighten. The billionaire was preparing to sign a contract that would give him total control over a newly discovered planet, rich in rare minerals. But the contract was far from straightforward. Hidden clauses could trigger economic collapse across nearby systems, destabilize colonies, and spark conflicts that even Xylar might not be able to control. Ethan's mind raced as he realized the stakes. He could not stay silent. No one else would warn Xylar, not that it was their place. And most aliens trusted only their own kind or their highly programmed AI. A human janitor warning a galactic billionaire seemed impossible. But Ethan felt a sense of duty he could not ignore. He waited until Xylar's voice softened, signaling the end of the meeting, and then stepped forward. "Excuse me," Ethan said, keeping his voice calm but firm. "You shouldn't sign that contract." The words echoed through the massive room. Xylar froze mid-step, spinning toward the source of the voice. His tall frame loomed over Ethan, his skin shimmering like liquid bronze under the office lights, and his eyes, sharp, calculating, and slightly unsettling, fixed on him. For a moment, the human felt small, insignificant. Xylar's reputation was legendary. He was known for making deals that crushed entire planets into submission. No being had ever dared to speak to him this way. Yet something in Ethan's tone, the certainty behind his simple words, held his attention. "You?" Xylar's voice was a low, melodic hum that resonated through the office. "A human janitor? You think you understand the risks of my contract?" Ethan swallowed, feeling a surge of determination. "I do. I've studied the details. There are hidden clauses. Even your AI didn't catch them. If you sign this as it is, it could destroy colonies, spark wars, and ruin your reputation beyond repair." The room fell silent. Xylar's advisors, who had been lingering just outside the office, froze. Some whispered to one another, shocked that a human would dare speak in this tone. The legal AI paused mid-scan, its holographic displays flickering as if processing something it had never expected. Xylar stepped closer, his massive form towering over Ethan, yet there was curiosity in his eyes rather than anger. "Explain," he commanded. Ethan nodded, trying to keep his voice steady. "The contract gives you rights to the entire mineral output of that planet. On paper, it's brilliant. But there are clauses about emergency extraction and system intervention that allow you to act without consulting planetary governors. If activated, these clauses could be interpreted as an act of aggression by neighboring systems. They have fleets capable of retaliation. Even your defenses wouldn't guarantee safety. The AI didn't flag it because it only looks at financial benefit. It doesn't calculate political fallout or the human cost. I did." Xylar's eyes narrowed. His mind was a machine for strategy, profit, and control. Yet he found himself considering the possibility that this human could be correct. He had seen humans survive extreme conditions, adapt faster than most alien species, and think in unpredictable ways. Perhaps this janitor's perspective was valuable. "You claim to understand these systems better than my AI," Xylar said, his voice low but tense. "Why should I believe you?" Ethan straightened. "Because humans think differently. We notice patterns others overlook. We consider consequences beyond profit. If this contract goes through, the fallout will reach systems you didn't even consider. You could lose more than money. You could lose influence, allies, and even lives that matter to your empire." Xylar studied him for a long moment. The tension in the room was palpable. Advisors began to stir, some stepping closer, whispering warnings to Xylar. One or two even suggested silencing the human, though fear held them back. Ethan sensed the danger but didn't flinch. He knew that if he failed to speak, the consequences could be catastrophic. "I don't work for you. I don't want a reward, I've seen what happens when contracts like this are signed. I can't stay silent." The words hung in the air. Xylar's hand trembled slightly as he reached for the contract on his desk. He had never paused like this before. Every deal he had ever made had been a calculated sequence, executed with precision. Yet now a human janitor had forced him to question his own judgment. He motioned for Ethan to continue. "Tell me what I don't see." Ethan walked closer, careful to remain non-threatening. Clause 17b allows immediate resource extraction without local consultation. That may seem like a small detail, but it could provoke a planetary defense system you don't know about. Clause 22c gives you leverage over trade agreements, but neighboring systems can interpret it as hostile overreach. Finally, Clause 33, the one buried on the last page, voids local safety regulations. If activated, it could cause environmental collapse and other systems will blame you. Xylar's eyes widened, scanning the holographic contract. The terms were dense even by alien standards, yet Ethan's warning highlighted connections the billionaire had missed. Xylar realized that a single oversight could spiral into a galaxy-wide crisis. "You're saying that my empire, my wealth, and my plans could crumble because of a single contract?" Xylar asked, his voice now tinged with uncertainty. "Yes," Ethan said simply. "If you sign without changes, the consequences could be worse than you imagine. You could gain the planet, but lose control of the systems around it. And once that domino falls, there's no turning back." The silence stretched for moments that felt like hours. Xylar sat in his massive chair, the holographic projections reflecting on his shimmering skin. He had been in control of countless empires, negotiated deals that decided the fate of planets, yet here he was, paralyzed by the words of a human janitor. Ethan waited, heart pounding. He knew the risk. Xylar could reject his warning, dismiss him, or worse. But he also knew that sometimes the smallest voice made the biggest difference. Humans were underestimated, yes, but their insight could alter even the plans of the most powerful beings. Finally, Xylar spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "Bring me the clauses you mentioned. I want to see them broken down." Ethan handed over a small datapad he had compiled while cleaning, his hand steady despite the tension. He had no formal access to Xylar's systems, but his knowledge of alien protocols allowed him to extract the necessary information without triggering alarms. As Xylar reviewed the data, the billionaire's usual confidence wavered. Each clause Ethan highlighted was a potential disaster if mishandled. For the first time, Xylar felt the weight of consequences beyond profit. He realized that his AI, despite its vast intelligence, could not match human intuition and adaptability. "You've done well, human," Xylar said, almost reluctantly. "Most beings would never dare speak to me like this. You could have been ignored or eliminated." Ethan nodded. "I didn't come here for praise. I came because someone had to speak the truth." The tension eased slightly, but the stakes remained. Xylar turned back to the contract. He could cancel it now, but that would shock the galaxy. His rivals expected him to sign without question. Canceling would be seen as weakness, yet signing without caution could lead to disaster. "I will consider your warning," Xylar said finally, "and I will act wisely. But know this, your courage has earned you my attention. Do not mistake it for safety." Ethan gave a small, respectful nod. "Understood." As the human janitor left the office, mop in hand, he felt a strange mixture of relief and anticipation. He had done what he could. The rest was up to Xylar, and for the first time, he sensed that humanity, small, underestimated, and clever, could shape the destiny of a galaxy. Outside the office, the alien advisors whispered nervously, unable to comprehend how a single human had influenced one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Rumors would spread, reputations would be questioned, and Xylar himself would be changed forever. Ethan returned to his work, moving through the gleaming corridors with quiet pride. He knew that the galaxy often overlooked humans, dismissing them as weak and unimportant. But humans had something that machines and aliens could never fully replicate: insight, courage, and the willingness to speak when others stayed silent. And somewhere deep inside, Ethan felt the thrill of knowing that his small voice might have just prevented a catastrophe, the likes of which the galaxy had never seen. Xylar Vaunt sat in his private quarters, the holographic displays of the contract still floating before him. For hours, he had reviewed Ethan's warnings, analyzing every clause and scenario. The human janitor's observations had shaken him in ways no AI, no advisor, and no competitor ever could. Xylar's empire spanned multiple star systems, yet he felt the fragility of his power more acutely than ever. He thought of the consequences Ethan had described. A neighboring system could misinterpret the contract as an act of aggression. Colonies could rise in rebellion, trade alliances might crumble, and entire fleets could mobilize against him. Xylar had faced countless threats before, but this was different. A single human, untrained in alien corporate law, had identified what he had missed. The alien billionaire leaned back in his chair, the light from the holographic display reflecting off his skin like molten metal. He had always valued intelligence, cunning, and foresight. Yet he realized that humans, often dismissed as fragile and unremarkable, possessed something unique: perspective. Humans saw connections differently, thought unpredictably, and acted boldly. He had to act. But what? Signing the contract would solidify his control over the planet and its resources. But the risks Ethan had highlighted were too great. Canceling outright might cause political unrest and make him appear weak. Xylar understood that strength was perception as much as reality in the galaxy of empires and alliances. He summoned Ethan. The janitor appeared promptly, carrying his datapad, his hand steady despite the importance of the meeting. Xylar studied him carefully, noting the calm confidence in the human's eyes. This small, unassuming being had just shifted the course of galactic events. "You have my attention," Xylar said. "Explain again in detail why I should not sign this contract as it stands." Ethan stepped forward, voice clear. "It's not just the legal terms. It's how other systems will perceive them. Clause 17B allows you to extract resources immediately without local consultation. That sounds minor. But to neighboring governments, it is a declaration of sovereignty over the planet. Clause 22C gives you leverage over trade, but some systems could see it as aggressive control, prompting sanctions or even military retaliation. And Clause 33 voids safety regulations. The environmental impact could be catastrophic, and if it happens, they will blame you." Xylar listened, absorbing every word. He replayed his mental simulations, testing Ethan's scenarios. Each time, the human's warnings proved accurate. The AI had missed these because it evaluated decisions in terms of efficiency and profit, not perception or consequence. Ethan's human intuition had revealed blind spots even the most advanced algorithms could not detect. "Then what do you suggest?" Xylar asked. Ethan took a deep breath. "You can still benefit from the planet. Negotiate the contract differently. Make it clear that local authorities are involved in decision-making and that environmental and safety regulations are maintained. That way, you keep the advantage without causing systemic instability. It may take longer, but it prevents conflict." Xylar considered this. It was a simple solution, yet no one in his empire had thought of it. Humans were underestimated for a reason. They acted outside predictable patterns, and that made them powerful in ways aliens rarely understood. "Very well," Xylar said, a hint of a smile forming. "We will renegotiate. But I need your insight. Stay with me, human. Help me revise the terms." Ethan nodded, a mixture of pride and surprise flashing across his face. He had expected the human role to end with a warning, not an invitation to directly influence one of the galaxy's most powerful figures. Together, they went over every clause, every footnote, and every line of legal text. Ethan suggested changes that protected Xylar's interest while ensuring that no system could claim he acted recklessly. Hours turned into days as they worked, and Xylar found himself respecting Ethan more with every session. The human's knowledge of strategy, human psychology, and unexpected problem-solving made him invaluable. Xylar realized something profound. While aliens prized logic and hierarchy, humans thrived in unpredictability, and that made them uniquely capable of navigating complex crises. Word began to spread quietly through the station. Aliens who had always dismissed humans now whispered about the janitor, who had altered a billionaire's course. Rival executives watched with growing disbelief, unable to comprehend how a human could influence one of the wealthiest and most feared figures in the galaxy. The day came to present the revised contract to the other parties involved. Xylar walked into the negotiation chamber with Ethan at his side, a sight that drew startled gasps. Alien delegates were unprepared for a human to be present, let alone advising Xylar directly. Murmurs filled the room, questioning whether this was a sign of weakness. Xylar addressed the delegates, calm but commanding. This contract has been revised to account for fairness, environmental safety, and mutual benefit. I will sign only when all parties agree to these terms. Some of the alien negotiators hesitated, but the logic was clear. The revised contract protected Xylar's interest while preventing the chaos the original could have caused. Slowly they agreed. The signing went smoothly, but the galaxy would remember the moment when a human had indirectly rewritten the rules of interstellar negotiation. After the negotiations, Xylar turned to Ethan. You saved me from a mistake that could have cost more than wealth or territory. You have a perspective that even my advisors and AI could not provide. Tell me, human, how can I repay you? Ethan smiled faintly. No repayment needed. I only wanted to prevent disaster. Xylar shook his head. No, that is not enough. You have proven your worth far beyond what any title or position could indicate. You will remain with me as a strategic advisor. From this day forward, your insight will be considered in every decision we make. The human janitor's life changed overnight. Aliens who had once ignored him now respected him. Some even envied the access he had to Xylar. He was no longer invisible. He was invaluable. Yet he remained humble, focused on the work that mattered, ensuring humanity's perspective was considered, even in the affairs of the most powerful alien empires. Xylar, meanwhile, had changed too. The encounter had shown him that raw power and wealth alone were not enough to navigate the galaxy safely. He had underestimated humans, and he would not make that mistake again. He saw now that courage, insight, and intellect, even in beings considered weak, could alter destinies. Ethan continued his role as both janitor and advisor, often moving quietly through the station's halls, unnoticed yet influential. He reminded Xylar that sometimes the smallest voice could carry the weight of entire systems, and that humility and leadership was as valuable as strength. Months later, when historians of interstellar politics looked back on Xylar's empire, they noted a turning point. The day he paused before signing a contract that could have triggered war and collapse, thanks to the courage of a single human janitor. That human, who had no title, no rank, and no special status, had reminded the galaxy that intellect, observation, and courage could rival even the greatest power. Ethan often reflected on that moment, realizing that humanity's true strength lay not in technology or weaponry, but in the willingness to stand up and speak when others stayed silent. Across the galaxy, humans were underestimated, but they carried a spark of ingenuity and courage that could reshape empires. And somewhere in the offices of Xylar Vaunt, the billionaire alien often caught himself thinking about the human who had saved him from himself. Xylar never forgot the lesson. Never underestimate the unexpected, never ignore insight from the overlooked, and never forget that humans, small and unassuming as they might appear, could change the fate of the galaxy. Ethan, mop in hand, returned to his cleaning duties each day, a quiet smile on his face. He did not seek fame or recognition. He knew that the galaxy had seen the value of humanity that day, and he knew that sometimes it took a single voice, spoken with clarity and courage, to prevent disaster and ensure a better future. The galaxy continued to turn. Empires rose and fell, and resources were claimed and lost. Yet in the midst of all that, the story of a human janitor who warned an alien billionaire remained a lesson etched across star systems. Insight, courage, and humanity could triumph over arrogance. Greed and power. Ethan's voice, simple yet resolute, had altered the course of events. And for the first time, aliens across the galaxy reconsidered the humans they had always underestimated. And that was only the beginning.